is I think as moms, sometimes we can get caught up with well, it has to look aesthetically great, or this has to look perfect. And the fact that you're giving your son the freedom to just be like, this is the system that works for me. Throw it in, done. And he's able to find what he needs.
It's
it
at
works
his level.
for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to ask for help.
Mm-hmm. So being able to take a step back and put his needs and his functionality needs above yours makes your life easier.
Welcome to Reframe and Reclaim. We are Courtney Huckabee, a psychotherapist,
and Jen Harris, an interior designer who have teamed up
to reflect,
challenge,
and reframe your mindset in relationship with your personal belongings.
Join us as we discuss and declutter all of the stuff that keeps us stuck.
Learn to intentionally create environments with improved function and design that cultivate peace of mind. Find the reframe.
Start your reclaim.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Reframe and Reclaim. I am Courtney Huckabee.
And I'm Jen Harris.
And today we're here to talk about the 7-step process. Today is the A for
Assemble.
Assemble.
Love this one. So up until this point, you have reflected. You've evaluated the items that are most important. You've cleaned the space.
My favorite step.
And you've laid it out, and now we're ready to assemble. So right after the layout space, so you've kind of given yourself this blueprint, right? You kind of know what's going to work. You've purchased your organizational materials if you want any bins or anything else that's going to be going into the space, right? You've kind of thought about the spacing and how much space you're going to need for each item. And now we're actually going to put those items back into the space.
This is where theoretically, I've drawn it out, I've measured it up, this is how it's going to fit, meets practice.
Yes, and this is where like to me, the instant gratification starts, right? You're seeing it all come together. It can also be a frustrating step because, as we mentioned before, not all walls are the same, depth-wise, measuring-wise, they're not all straight. And so it can kind of throw a little bump in the road. Mm-hmm. So be sure to be flexible. You might have measured it for these 3 bins, but only 2 of that size will fit. So
yes, and remember, this is trial and error. So
yes.
We have a roadmap, we have a mental idea, a mental hope for the space. We have an idea of how the space will function. We kind of know what items will go back in, but until we really see it in full form, it may not be exactly what you want or intended.
Yes. So as you're going back with the layout, again, you've decided what's going to go there. Put your bins in, start categorizing your items. You might decide that you need 2 categories to fit in 1 bin because of how the spacing works. But once you start putting things back in, if the space is filled and you still have more items, you may have to go back and do another round of evaluating. And I do find like doing multiple rounds really helps because the first round is really just kind of seeing what you have and getting your initial, okay, this is what I think I'll use. And then the second round is getting more critical of what is really realistically and actually going to fit into the space, right? So you may have to do another round to decide if you're going to let go of more of that item, or is another item going to go away or move to a different shelf to accommodate it. So like the pasta example that you gave from layout.
Right.
So I have so much pasta. Do I really want to devote, 12 inches of space to this pasta, or do I really want to do 6 to 8 and accommodate for something else?
Yeah.
Again, no right or wrong answers, but it's really understanding the functionality of the space, what you need for your everyday life, and how it's going to work, how that system really is going to work so it's easy to maintain.
And it improves your peace of mind. So if we have an overstuffed space, whether it's a closet or whether it's a guest room or it's a pantry, and we continue to overstuff it, is this really going to relieve some of that stress or overwhelm or difficulty in finding things if I'm not really reframing and reclaiming this space? Now,
yes,
Jen, you told me something when we were doing my pantry that there's like an aesthetic kind of rule for assembling. Do you remember that rule you told me? Oh my
Who's in
gosh.
so many
I
rules?
love
Let's
this
see.
rule because
I'll know it as soon as she says it. I'm like, rules. They're made to be broken. What's the...
and rules can be
No.
broken, but just the idea is you don't want your space that you have 100% filled. You
yes,
want to
the
have
80-20.
a little bit, yes, you want to have a little bit of wiggle room for some of the next steps as well. So
Yes.
as you're putting things back in, talk to us about the 80-20 rule in assembling.
Yes. So, and this actually applies to a lot of things in our life, usually 80-20-20, right? So we want to fill the space about 80% and then give us 20% of space for flexibility. So what that means is I have found, and I've been victim to this too, because in American society, we're told just all you need is this one gadget. It's going to solve all your problems, right? All you need is remodel this, and then you're never going to have to touch it again in your life, right? And that's just not the case, because our lives are constantly changing.
Mm-hmm.
The things we bring into our homes are constantly changing. And so I find that about 80% of a system is going to stay the same, is going to function year after year. But about 20% of that is going to fluctuate depending on what's happening in your current life chapter. So same with a pantry. You know, you want to give yourself some flexibility. You want to give yourself some space in there. So in the case of pasta, if you go to the store and you're like, ooh, I don't remember if I had this or not, I'm going to buy another one, right? You want to make sure you have that little bit of space to put an extra one in. Because if not, you're going to get home and you're like, I have this extra pasta and pasta sauce. Am I making pasta tonight? Or do I have to go store this somewhere else until another space opens up in the pantry?
Right. And I love how you talk about, like, is this going to fit on this shelf, like you said earlier, or is it going to fit on another shelf, or is it going to fit in another space? Mm-hmm. What we don't want is our space that we want it to be functioning and then overflowing onto countertops, overflowing into other closets, overflowing into the bedroom whenever we really need it in the closet.
Yes.
And so this is, again, that theory and practice. Theoretically, I only need one bar to hang all of my clothes and they'll all fit. But once I start evaluating, oh, I really love that shirt, or I might wear it next season, or that dress is really cute. If I could just lose a few extra pounds, I'll fit into it again. Then you start to get into, you know, these really clutter and these are overwhelming and they're not really fitting well. And one thing I found is they're starting to wrinkle. Like I'll iron something and I'll put it back in, and because it's so stuffed, it wrinkles again. And so I have to iron it the night before, put it out on a different, you know, hanging hook, or iron it the morning of. And who wants to get up 15 minutes early when you're
sleep is too valuable to get
and
up
so
to
I
iron.
love this idea even of the 80-20 rule, even in my closet, because I can say, if I'm going to use this and I'm going to wear this, I need to make sure that it's going to leave space for other clothes that might come in, or the seasonal clothes that might come in at a different season, and how to kind of recycle and store those away.
Another thing to think about with the assemble step is, and this is going to go into more of the system and the maintenance of it. So for me, I'll take like underneath my bathroom countertop, open the cabinets, and I would have like shoebox sized plastic bins, and everything's labeled and organized by what it is, right? But this works great in theory, right? So I've got all my bins stacked, but in my everyday life, whenever I go to put that away, if I have to get something out of the bottom bin and take off all these bins, pull this one out, then get it out, I'm not going to do it. And if I need to put in it, what am I going to do? I'm going to set it in front of it, and I'll say, I'll get to it later. And that just doesn't work, because then whenever I come back to it later, now it's this random thing that I have to deal with, right? And then it's visual clutter. It's another to-do. It's stressing me out. Like, even though it's very low-key stress, it's still another thing. And I don't want another thing to do.
And the hope for reassembling everything back into the space is, again, it's going to function and it's going to feel really great for you. And if those two things aren't fitting in the practice of this assemble, that's when we go back to reevaluate how the space is laid out, or what goes into this space, or what are the systems that I need to do, or reimagining how the space is used.
Yes. And so in that case, you know, clear bins with drawers would probably work better, because I can stack those, but I can just easily access, grab, drop in, and go. So thinking of those functional aspects as well as you start to reassemble.
definitely. I have reframed and reclaimed my pantry, reframed and reclaimed my closet, reframed and reclaimed my son's closet and his dresser drawers and our garage. And every time I do it, I have a different mindset. I have a different system I need, and I can't use the same system in my closet that I use for my son's closet. And it's really interesting that I'm like, oh, this works great for me. But, we have a different system for my son. We have 3 tiered bars. He's a younger boy, but we put all of his clothes he'll wear daily on a bottom bar. For me, I want 1 bar for me, and I want my shoes below. His shoes go under his bed. There's a drawer that is fitted into his bed. That's where his shoes go. I couldn't put my shoes in there like that, but he just, he's little. He just throws his shoes down. He doesn't match them up and pair them up and put them nicely like I do. And so I think it's really important as you're assembling, maybe a assembly that worked for one closet or one, space in your home isn't always going to have the same assembly or system as another.
Yes. And one thing that I love about that example is I think as moms, sometimes we can get caught up with it has to look aesthetically great, or this has to look perfect. And the fact that you're giving your son the freedom to just be like, this is the system that works for me. Throw it in, done. And he's able to find what he needs.
It works
his
level.
For him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to ask for help.
Mm-hmm. So being able to take a step back and put his needs and his functionality needs
right
above yours makes your life easier.
And my aesthetic needs too. Do I really want 3 tiers of clothes in there? It kind of feels overwhelming. However, it works great because the dress up clothes are up higher. I don't want him, getting those out for play clothes. He has his clothes that he wears every day at his level, and everything in the middle is like, we'll have like pants on the middle and shorts on the middle and all of his shirts on the bottom. He goes through shirts like crazy, spilling things on him or, whatever it is. But I love that he can go in and the system that works for me when I assembled it this way, he can go in and find the clothes that he wants to wear, and then he can have a little bit more of that life skill of having independence, having a choice, those kinds of things.
Yes.
And then he can reach his own shoes, and the same thing with socks and underwear. In his dresser, they're at the bottom, and it works really well for him. And my dresser, they're at the top of my thing because, I get to those every day, and I don't always get to the, t-shirts every day. I go to my work clothes in the closet. I don't get to my yoga pants every day, even though I want to. I go to my work pants that are ironed and hung up in the closet.
Yes. So customizing it to the family and what their needs are. Yeah. Love that. Well, another thing I love about this step is this is where you get to move the furniture around, move it back in. I love it. And then the space just all starts coming together and flowing. And again, what you sketched out on paper, you may put it in the space, because I don't know about you, but I always sketch things perfectly to scale. And I'm like, this is going to fit right there.
I'm a therapist for a reason. I love words and talking. Math is not my strong suit.
But I love it's like no, this will fit, and then you get in there, you're like, wow, this chair is so much bigger than it looks, And so you have to move it around, but it's fun to just try new things and see what feels right and live with it again
try it out
for a week, 2 weeks, and see what you like. And if it doesn't work, change it. No big deal.
And again, this was what works for you, what works for your home, what works for your system, what works for your family. So what works for me will not work for everybody, and that's okay. But I think instead of going with what should happen or what this is supposed to be used for, if the linen closet in the hallway is supposed to be for towels and sheets, but you change it into a game room closet instead, that's okay, because we love to have games and have people over and have game nights. So, or if you want it to be half and half, that can be that too.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so making sure that it's not what it's supposed to be used for, but what really, really works for you. And
I think going back to that supposed to be what it should, I think this is where some people can get stuck on like the Instagram perfectness or the Pinterest page. And it's like, well, it should look like this, but it's not going to function how I want. Again, going back to the bins under my cabinet, it looked really pretty. It looked nice, but it didn't function how I needed. So functionality before, form follows function. So
Yeah. And if you can make the function look beautiful for you, gold
Yes.
star.
And that you can.
And that's
Easy.
what we're working for, But if it doesn't feel good to look at and it overwhelms you or brings distress in some way, how can we revamp this system and reimagine it and maybe even reframe the things in this space or how the space is used so that it does bring more function for you and more peace of mind?
Yes. So that is the assemble step from the reclaim process. Please leave us your comments if this system is working well for you. If you found, you laid something out and as you started to assemble it, it was like, oh, this worked perfect, or nope, I had to go back to the drawing board. But we'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Hope to hear from you soon. Look at the comments below. Get our book. It's also ebook, printed physical copy, and our audiobook is out officially now. So you can hear us read to you if reading is not your jam. I know for me, I love a good audiobook.
Me too. All right, well, till next time, take care. Thanks so much for listening today. Please like and subscribe and share your comments below if you've enjoyed our episode.
Please leave us information, comments, feedback, or anything that you're working on in your personal space. We'd love to hear how your reframe and reclaim process is going for you.